Sometimes in life you need a push. Sometimes people have to come along and get you out of your comfort zone. Sometimes they have to shake you awake. It's something that has to happen sometimes. Now, you can argue about different ways it might happen, but sometimes you have to get people out of their comfort zone to get them to do what needs to be done. Those two guys certainly knew that. I want to take time in this presentation to point out something that perhaps isn't the most scientific Marxist thing ever to say, but women are better than men, okay? And we don't believe in biological determinism. We don't believe in the inherent superiority of any genders and sexes, but women are better than men. Women are better organizers than men, okay? Let's be real. We men, we like to get up here and give speeches, and we're always competing with the other guys, but women know how to hold groups together. They know how to get stuff done. You know, we love our president, Elizabeth Young, who's done so much to hold this organization together this year. And we also love Jetta, and nobody messes with Jetta. Let me just put it that way. Jetta's awesome, and she's also done so much to hold this organization together. And we're also very proud to have the top communist woman in Britain joining us today. So we'll be hearing from her tomorrow. I'm very excited for her presentation about the fight in the global communist movement. But women are so much better than men, men have problems. We do, okay? And especially now, it's a very hard time to be a young man. We talk, obviously the oppression of women, you know, sexual assault and battery and all the things that women go through, doesn't compare, but this is a hard time to be a young man also. And, you know, I see so many young men out there, and it's like every day they feel like they're on trial, right? And they're desperate to prove themselves because there's so much judgment poured on young men right now. Why don't you have a good paying job, you know, that pays for everything? Why aren't you married? Why don't you have a house? You know, so many young men, they've been told all their life that they have all this obligation. And then the society around them is crumbling and they don't find a place in it. And I meet so many young men, and we are an overwhelmingly male organization. You know, we are. There's no way to deny that. Look at this room, you know? We are an overwhelmingly male organization, and I love all the men here. And I want all the men here to know that you're not on trial in CPI. No one's judging you. No one is judging you here in this organization. We're happy to have you here, and we love you. We love you, and we support you, and we want you to make the best contribution you can ever make, and we want to empower you to make that contribution. That's what we want to do. And I say that because I want you to let your guard down. I want you to just let your guard down and give yourself to this, because it's hard. In a world where everyone seems to be attacking you, where no one seems to ever give you a break, where everyone seems to be judging you and rating you, I want you to take a deep breath and say, this is the group I'm in, I'm committed to it. I want you to go all in, and I want you to let your guard down, and I want you to do your best. And it's hard. It's hard to trust in these kinds of times. Social media is so good at making everyone terrified of everyone else. Everyone's afraid. Everyone feels like they're being judged and put on trial every single minute. I want CPI to be a place where people don't feel like that's the case. I want CPI to be a place where people feel like they are free to be who they are and they can let their guard down, because it's hard. It is so hard in these times. So absolutely hard. And I'll say this. I know why Maduro is still in power. You know, it was this country. Maduro was the leader of Venezuela, and the United States, especially right after Chavez died, they did everything to take Maduro out of power. I know why Maduro is still in power. I know why the United Socialist Party hasn't been defeated. Because when I went to Venezuela in 2015, when the opposition in Venezuela had a sweep and won the elections, after that election, they took us to a commune in central Caracas. And in central Caracas, we sat down with a woman, 21 years old, was wearing army pants, and I can guarantee you she knew her way around an AK-47. I can guarantee you that. And she said to us, they will never come back. And she told us her life story. She'd been a homeless young woman on the streets of Caracas, didn't even speak Spanish, only spoke indigenous languages. She'd been an orphan, and there was a priest who was a socialist, a liberation theology priest, who took her in. And she grew up in an orphanage run by this liberation theology priest. And Hugo Chavez was the president, and they watched him on TV, and he taught them about Marxism, and he read them what is to be done on television, and she learned about socialism and revolution, and she told me, she said, I'm a communist, but I'm also a Christian. And she said, I believe God put me on this earth to die for communism, and that is what I intend to do. They will never come back. That's what she told me. And I also know why the Islamic Republic of Iran is not going to fail. Because I've been there, and I had the opportunity of being one of the only Americans, or not one of the only, but one of the few Americans to ever be in the presence of Iran's supreme leader, which is quite an experience. It was the supreme leader of Iran. He speaks every year on the anniversary of the death of Imam Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Republic. And I was in this auditorium with 20,000 people, and he walks out, and he can only use one of his arms because of a bombing, and he puts his arm up, and that room just goes crazy. They just go crazy, crying and screaming, and the men extend their hands, and they say, the blood in my vessels belongs to the supreme leader. The blood in my vessels belongs to the supreme leader. And, when I was in downtown Tehran and going to these conferences, I was talking to people who work in media in Iran. I was talking to wealthier folks who support the revolution. But when I was in that auditorium, in that mausoleum of Khomeini with 20,000 other people, I was talking to the working class of Iran. I was talking to people who wouldn't have running water and electricity if it weren't for the Islamic Revolution. That's who I was talking about. And there's a reason they were screaming in adoration for Khamenei, the supreme leader, because he was the one who could stand for them against the rich and powerful. He was their champion, to stand with the oppressed. That's what they talk about. It's part of the Shia revolutionary tradition. And that was real politics. That wasn't leftism. That wasn't LARPing. That wasn't internet debating. That was real politics, that auditorium of 20,000 people. And in that speech, I was standing there. I was wearing my suit, no ties, because in Iran you don't wear a tie, but I was wearing a suit, and I'm standing there with a lot of Chinese diplomats and diplomats from African countries. And we're standing there, and he's making different remarks about different things. And at the time that I was there, in Iran, there was a controversy about whether or not to call America the Great Satan. And some people were saying, well, maybe we should stop calling America the Great Satan. I was standing there as the only American in an auditorium of 20,000 people where the supreme leader stated his position on the issue. And he said, even though we signed a nuclear deal with the United States, we do consider America to be the Great Satan. But we don't consider the American people to be the Great Satan. We mean the system of imperialism, the system of war and death and destruction. That's what we consider to be the Great Satan. And we will never compromise on that. And though we may negotiate, we will never surrender to the Great Satan. And then I was the only American in an auditorium of 20,000 people who began chanting, "Death to America," and pumping their fists like this, "Death to America, death to America." And tears rolled down my face. And it is an experience I will never forget for the rest of my life. To stand there. And I said death to America, burned American flags as a leftist before. But in that moment, everything meant something different to me because I was with those people. I was with them against the US imperialists. But I also knew that so many of the American people would have something to gain from destroying not America as we know it, but the America of the bankers and the billionaires and the war hawks and the monopolists. And there's millions of Americans who would be in that room with me if they knew the truth. If they knew the truth, they'd be in that room with me. And that we have a responsibility to take this seriously. We have a responsibility to try and communicate this in a way that'll win people over. We have a responsibility to not burn the American flag, but to wave the American flag. We have a responsibility to not advocate death, destruction, and chaos, but a 4-point economic plan that would improve people's lives. This isn't a game. This isn't a joke. This is serious. And it is our job to do the best that we can do here in the center of the empire, to get working people to understand who their real enemy is and why imperialism is the enemy of all humanity. That is what our responsibility is. It's not a joke. And I couldn't unsee what I saw in that room. And that was the beginning of my trip out of the Workers' World Party. The day I walked out of that room was the day I was beginning to leave the Workers' World Party because I couldn't unlearn it. And then when I went back When I went back to the United States and went to leftist protests, something was off. I felt sick to my stomach. I was frustrated. I was like, guys, people are losing their homes and jobs in Ohio. This is not a joke. Can we mature? Can we take this seriously? It's not about doing what's trendy and hip. It's about actually trying to win. And I saw that something was off. And then Donald Trump ran for president. And I saw Donald Trump saying a lot of things that I agreed with about the wars and about the elite. And I saw a left that didn't want to engage with these people. They're all racist. They're all, and just dismissed. Basket of deplorables, like Hillary Clinton said. And I said, we got to do something about this. CPI is a result. CPI is a result of my revelations internationally and my understanding and my frustration and my desire to take this seriously. And that's why CPI is still here. And that's why I will continue to do this. I will say, I won't say who, but I got multiple messages that really all traced back to one particular leftist personality who said to me, Caleb, you should stop organizing. You should stop organizing. Just be a social media commentator. And I heard that and I said, I don't know what that means. And I said to the person, honestly, I don't know what that means. For me, being a communist is about building an organization. It is about building a group. It is about getting things done. If I was just a writer or just a speaker or just a commentator on the internet, maybe I'd comment on science fiction novels. Maybe I'd comment on basketball or football. But if I'm talking about communism, I'm doing it because I want to change the world. I'm doing it because I want to build an organization. I read the literature I read communist literature, William Z. Foster, Gus Hall. It's all about building an organization. It's not about, getting points on social media. It's not about having the best edgy take that everyone retweets. It's about actually building an organization. That is the point. Karl Marx said that philosophers have long sought to analyze the world. The point, however, is to change it.